Hello and welcome to Access Asia. Coming up, while the coronavirus continues its rampage through Indonesia, we'll take a look at how volunteers are putting their lives on the line in the world's fourth most populous country. Holding the Olympics during a pandemic may be a Herculean task. Tokyo organizers have banned spectators and limited the press, but have yet to win over the public. And did you know India has a Great Wall of its own, protecting a massive fort and over 300 ancient temples? We'll take a tour of the massive, majestic structure in Rajasthan. Well, the coronavirus outbreak continues to worsen in Indonesia, fueled by the highly transmissible Delta variant. Cases and deaths have been soaring across the country. Hospitals have become overwhelmed, forcing some of the newly infected no other choice but to isolate at home. Alison Sargent takes a look at how volunteers have been helping out.
His daily visits are a lifeline for dozens of families in the Indonesian capital, even if they'll never see the lower half of his face. 26-year-old volunteer Badi Uzaman is a delivery driver for Jakarta nonprofit Wallet for the Poor, which provides meals for COVID patients.
I do feel scared. I'm worried all the time as I have a family and I always go back home to them after work. But I've fallen in love with humanity after all this. And that's what makes me believe that everything will be fine.
With Jakarta's hospitals at around 90% capacity, many have no choice but to isolate and recover at home. The nonprofit created a food service to bring them free meals. In addition to drivers like Badi, many housewives have volunteered to do the cooking.
We're here to cook for those who are in self-isolation because they can't cook and they can't go anywhere, and we make healthy meals for them.
In recent days, Indonesia has reported more new coronavirus cases than any country in the world, leading health experts to call it the new epicenter of the pandemic. On top of having saturated hospitals, Indonesia is also facing an oxygen shortage. While some volunteers deliver meals, groups of volunteer undertakers are also going door to door, collecting the bodies of those who have died.
Well, public sentiment in Japan is against the Tokyo Olympics. Holding a massive event during the pandemic was always going to be a tough sell, especially as the country struggles to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Andrew Hillier takes a look at some of the precautions that organizers have taken.
An Olympic Games like no other, coronavirus restrictions have left Tokyo organizers with no other choice but to strip down the Olympic experience to a bare minimum. There won't be the usual cheers as athletes cross the finishing line after a last-minute decision to ban spectators from stadiums. Athletes themselves have to play by dozens of new rules. They have to quarantine for 3 days on arrival and take daily coronavirus tests.
Within 6 hours before those either training sessions or sports competitions, they have to take, once again, tests, PCR tests, and then to prove that they are negative so that they would be able to participate in those training and sports competitions.
Neither athletes nor foreign journalists can play tourist while in Japan. Competitors can only leave their hotels to go to official venues and other limited locations. Many journalists have been forced to report from their hotel rooms and risk having their credentials stripped if they break the rules.
Because of these evolving health and safety conditions here in the Japanese capital, well, restrictions are also changing almost on a daily basis, leading us, for example, to do this piece from our hotel rooms, which was, of course, not scheduled.
Physical interactions are also discouraged. Athletes have been told to avoid hugs, handshakes and high fives. It all means that this year, what happens on the field is likely to get as much attention as what happens off it.
Well, now we take a closer look at one of the competitions at the Games. Keirin cycling originated in Japan, and for decades it's been a national obsession. The betting market brings in billions of euros per year, and our reporters met the coach of Japan's national team, France's renowned cycling guru, Benoit Vetou.
After a successful stint as coach of the Russian track cycling team, Benoit Vetou coached the Chinese team that won gold in the women's team sprint at the 2016 Rio Olympics. That record earned the Frenchman a lucrative contract with the Japanese team.
My daily life is always about action and pressure. That's why sometimes I allow myself occasional breaks to relax a bit. Because when you work in a country that's hosting the Olympics, you are under constant pressure.
Vetu has one goal in mind: to turn the 6 men and 2 women on Japan's team into medal winners. He's right to talk about pressure. Not only will Olympic track races be keenly watched in Japan and around the world, one popular event, Keirin, was invented in Japan in 1948. It was a popular distraction for Japan's war-weary people and raised money to rebuild the country's infrastructure. And in 2000, it became an Olympic sport. In each Olympic race, the riders follow a motorized journey for 3 laps before it leaves the track.
This is the calm before the storm.
The cue for a frantic sprint in the final 3 laps, with competitors reaching speeds of up to 70 kilometers an hour.
I like the speed and the interaction between the riders. It's a competition, but in Japanese Keirin, the riders form a kind of team based around the hierarchical relationships between younger and older cyclists.
Many riders are attracted by prize money. Keirin is one of only 4 sports in Japan on which it is legal to bet. It is managed by the Japanese state, which invests some of the profits in infrastructure and social services. In 2020, Keirin generated more than 5 billion euros in betting receipts. Races are held just about every day at 40 velodromes across the country. Racegoers are often older men, some of whom struggle to control their gambling habit.
I gamble about 800 euros a day. My family pleads with me to die because I waste too much money.
What does your wife think?
She left me because of my obsession with Keirin, because I gamble too much.
The most successful among Japan's 2,400 professional Keirin riders can earn huge sums. The winner of the year-end Grand Prix race pockets $1 million. The lure of big money means many successful cyclists shun international Keirin, according to journalist Justin McCurry, whose book about the sport's history and culture has just been published.
It is ironic that Keirin is a Japanese sport, yet Japan hasn't done very well in international Keirin. It certainly hasn't won a gold medal at the Olympics. The reason is that because it's a professional sport, most of the top riders prefer to just stick with the professional circuit in Japan. If they want to be part of the Olympic team, they have to take time away from the domestic Keirin circuit. They'll lose money.
That's a sacrifice that riders on Vetu team are prepared to make.
They find a sense of purity in making an effort for the Olympics. Medals are much more important than the money they can make on the Keirin circuit. So they made this choice. That is what is great, and it deserves to be highlighted because they've probably lost 3 million euros each over the past 5 years.
Today, in the last competition at the Olympic Velodrome before the Games begin, his riders have won every single race they entered. Their French coach will settle for nothing less than a gold medal this summer. In the women's Keirin, he's pinning his hopes on Yuka Kobayashi, a Keirin star who was unknown on the international circuit until recently.
It's crazy to think that 4 years ago she wasn't even trying to qualify for the Olympics. We worked very hard and she lost several kilos. When she arrived, she was doing the 200 meters flying time trial in 12 seconds. These days, her time is 10.6 seconds. That's faster than the Olympic record of 10.7.
Vetu's warriors on wheels are aiming high. He and they crave success, even if it means the Frenchman beats his compatriots along the way.
After China, India has the second longest continuous wall on Earth, extending over 36 kilometers. It was built centuries ago to protect a massive fort and more than 300 ancient temples. Keirin Garland takes us on a tour.
Snaking through valleys and along mountaintops, when seen from the sky, one might think it's the Great Wall of China. But we're here in Rajasthan in northern India. Built in the 15th century, this wall is said to be the second largest in the world. Tourists travel from all over to see it.
It's beautiful, so beautiful. I've always dreamt of coming here.
Conceived under the reign of the warrior Rana Kumbha, the wall is 36 kilometres long, with some parts 6 metres wide. Arjun Singh has been a tour guide for 12 years. He knows each of the wall's stones like the back of his hand.
So you can see the wall is going over there, you can see on top and behind this wall, and going down and going there, and finish there.
The wall actually served as ramparts meant to protect this fortress, which bears the name of Rana Kumbha. To reach it, one needs to pass several fortified gates made to resist the charge of elephants. The royal apartments can be found at the very top.
So that part just used for the private residence of the Mahana Kumbha. And second part is there, just used for the royal ladies. And they are all parts just used for the priest.
Inside the compound, a small village of agricultors remains standing. 200 people still live here, including Rais Khan and his family. His ancestors settled here in 1884.
I feel so lucky. I don't need to travel to see beautiful things. I just need to walk outside and see the forts.
For 5 centuries, the fort was successful in protecting the region from invaders, but that's partly thanks to a network of garrisons deployed at the foot of the wall. This palace was home to the officers in charge of defending the fort. Thakur Himat Singh is one of the soldiers' descendants.
This is an armor worn by soldiers or my ancestors when they went into battle. This particular thing would be a shield, like this particular thing would be a headgear worn on the head, like the one shown in the back of the picture. So it is, of course, very heavy.
Despite the 70 attacks on the wall, the soldiers kept the fortress from harm. The Great Wall of China, for its part, didn't always prevent enemy invasions.
Well, that's it for this edition. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned to France 24.
They're known for their cuisine and saying hello with a kiss. They only work 35 hours per week, when they're not on strike, that is. How true are these clichés about France? Every week, Florence Villeminot tears apart stereotypes. Join us for insight into French culture and current events to understand what makes the French so unique.
French Connections, presented by Florence Villeminot on France 24 and France24.com.